Thanks for having me. I always love to talk about books, and we don't always get the opportunity. So anytime there's a book club and they want to talk about my books, I'm in. We spend 9 months writing, editing, and prepping this book, and then we don't really have an outlet to discuss. So yeah, I'm in. Anytime, I'm in.
That's great. Cool. All righty. So let's see. Okay, first question up is why did you feel like we should get a new glimpse into the lives of Brooke and Cassie? We loved it. What made you do that?
I didn't even have it planned that they were in this book because I am a true pantser. And I have Temptation is my number one book. Everybody, it has outsold all my other books by like 10 times. And I just feel like people want more Brooke and Cassie. And normally when there are, they had their happy ending. They had their story, they had their happy ending. And so I really couldn't get back into them as far as like being primary characters, but I thought they would be a great background setting for a new set of characters, but still we get to have a glimpse as to what's going on in their lives. So I kind of was trying to figure out how much time had passed. And it was kind of like, I just started writing. I'm like, oh, they have a kid now. And, oh, here's Noah's, he's 12 and he's getting ready to hit puberty. And we kind of want to know what kind of little young man he's going to turn into. So I know that people are always interested and get invested in characters. And so that's why I was like, okay, they're coming in this book. So it wasn't planned or anything. It's just like, okay. So
We were talking about how much we loved seeing Noah's evolution and the young
yes.
man he's becoming. It was a great character.
Yeah,
And
I loved him.
the other piece of that is we were also saying, oh, so since this book was all about Josie's perspective, mostly, and we got a glimpse into Olivia, it left an opening for a follow-up from Olivia's perspective.
It's interesting because since I write for a publishing company, things that they don't really like is they don't like that. They don't like the other perspective. It's kind of like treated as a sequel, and like sequels don't always sell as well. So I think that I don't like I love the idea because I think I first, like, from what I can remember, they did that with like 50 Shades of Grey. I think like the whole series written, and then all of a sudden it came in through the perspective of the I think Christian Grey. He wrote, or that the perspective was from his point of view. And I think that's really interesting, and I would love to do that, but I don't think that BSB would publish it, I guess. So they're very weird about sequels and trilogies and any sort of continuation because it is a business and it drops off, like sales drop off from one to the next in a series. So like the third in a series doesn't always do as well as the second, that doesn't always do as well as the first. It's like there's a whole science to this, and like, believe it or not, but I would kind of like to do that, and I might do it just for fun, maybe put it on Patreon or something and just kind of have that out there. I think that'd be kind of fun. And actually the one that's in my head the most is Brooke's point of view when she meets Cassie from Temptation. I think that would be kind of a fun, because she's such an ice queen and you don't really get to know her her persona for a long time. And so I think that would be kind of fun just to see, how she reacts to meeting Cassie and what draws her to Cassie, because we really don't know. We never really know in the book itself. Mm-hmm. So, and I feel like Olivia is very much like Brooke, obviously different hardships, but that would be kind of fun, really.
That would be amazing. I know Caroline right before you said it, was messaging maybe on Patreon. So she's like,
yeah,
yay.
Yeah, that sounds
so now
like
we can have like the perspective of Brooke and then of Olivia. That would keep it going for quite a while.
That would, yeah, I would like to do that. Yeah, it's like I said, I just don't know that BSB would be up for that. That's just not what they do. And I know a lot of self-published writers who do that. Like I know Melina Mackay is doing that. And I want to say that Lee Winter is doing that as well, or has done that. I'm not quite sure, but I see little things, little snippets on social media, and and I know it is a popular thing to do. So maybe I will be able to get into that.
Cool.
I've got a question here. Because you're a pantser, did you do a bunch of research for this book for the art and other things, since you just kind of didn't plot it ahead of time? Did you have to do a lot
Yeah,
of research?
I don't like, so for me, art is I love art. Like I have a minor in art history, and I just love everything about it. And like my girlfriend's an artist. She actually designs all my covers. And so I'm always around it. And it was something that was easy to write about. And actually this book started out as a novella. It was just a filler between, because I had such a rough year. I couldn't do a full length. And I told BSB, I'm like, I can only do so much. So let me just write this novella between the two big releases, and we'll go from there. So it was supposed to be a truly just a lighthearted, fluffy book, and then it grew. It got a little bit bigger and a little bit longer, and then it turned into a book. So usually when I do a novella, it's real quick. It's like it doesn't really require a lot of research on my part. I save that for the big books. And then it's pretty much P-Town. Go to Massachusetts, it's pretty much P-Town. If you've been there, you can kind of recognize some of the things without it actually being P-Town. So I wasn't quite sure how too many people do books about P-Town, and I kind of wanted to do something different. Plus, people will, if it is a real town, readers will find mistakes that you've made. And so that's why I kind of keep the towns fake. So it's like, sure, we can have skyscrapers in the middle of nowhere. So it's stuff like that. So I didn't have to do a lot of research other than real estate. I'm not rich. I don't know how much mansions are. I don't know like how that works as far as beachfront property. I don't know if people can own certain what I had to do a lot of zoning stuff. But that was the only research that I had in the whole book.
Was there like a painting or a piece of art that was like inspiration for the style you described of portraits that Josie was doing? I was really curious. They sounded really interesting.
You know, I like Impressionism like everybody does. I think everybody knows and can identify Impressionism. But I like Post-Impressionism more so. It's a little bit darker. And I think that just because I like it so much and I've seen so much, and we have a lot of the art here in Kansas City at the Nelson, some of the portraits are just, we have one, and his name is, I think you pronounce it Childi Hassam, and he is Post-Impressionism. And there is a painting up at the Nelson called the Sonata. And it is of a woman who has just finished playing, and he does a very good job of putting in different colors where, when it's supposed to be white or when it's supposed to be yellow. He uses all sorts of different colors, and you look at it and you're like, okay, her hair is yellow, but when you get up close, it's like, red, purple, blue, but for some reason it looks blonde or yellow or whatever, gold. And so it's kind of that, because I've always loved that painting ever since I was a kid, like a teenager. When I first moved here, that was my favorite painting, and I think that really inspired like the style that I wanted to portray in Noah's portrait, was using different colors to create his white blonde hair.
And Elena asked, do you have an art background, or was it just purely through research that you?
Yeah, like I said, I have an art history background, because I wish that I had creativeness. I wish I could draw, I wish I could paint, but I can't. And I really want to, but I can't. So instead, I minored in the history of it, just because, like I said, I just love the different periods of art throughout time. And that was my research. Like I said, it's a lot of it, life experiences help you with your research. And I just have so much interest in art anyway. So it was just fun. I just kind of, browsed through some different, paintings, and everybody, like, when you go to P-Town and you go into the galleries, a lot of the artwork is about beach scenes and about landscapes. And so Josie goes there to work on her landscapes, but then she discovers that she loves portraits more, that she can learn from Olivia the portraits and how to do them. And they are not easy. Like, I don't know if anybody here has had art before, like in high school, and you always have to draw yourself or draw somebody else, and you can never get it right. It's super hard to do. And so I kind of wanted her to focus on that. And then it just kind of turned into, she starts drawing Olivia when she's really supposed to be drawing grapes or pears or something. And she realizes halfway through, like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't be doing this. This is creepy. And then she quickly, draws what she's supposed to, but she keeps going back to it. And I think there's just when you draw portraits, you can really get a lot of the personality through on portraits. And it's kind of funny because what I've learned in the past through my classes, like a lot of people who were commissioned to portrait kings and rulers in the past, hundreds of years ago, they always include like their personality. And you're like, okay, they made him look a little snarky. And it's because he is snarky or because he's a jerk. And you just see these little tiny things in the painting that they probably would not have noticed, but the artist always puts a little bit in there to kind of help draw or help point out importance in their portraits, if that even makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but that's kind of what Josie, she discovered, like, hey, this is something, and maybe I can learn from Olivia on how to create sadness without making it sad, or create happiness without using bright colors, and figure out how to actually, paint or draw somebody and make it realistic.
Looking at some of the questions that we have, Lana wants to know, how do you stay unique when everyone writing romance is using similar tropes?
I think since I write in first person a lot, I think I just kind of have a voice. I've written like 20 or so books, and I think pretty much everybody has a style. Like, my style is different than somebody else's, whether it's, Georgia Beers writing in first person, or Melissa writing in first person, or, Melina Mackay writing in first person, Alley Valley. Like, we all kind of have our own personal voices on how we tell the story. And I can't get caught up on, I hope this doesn't sound too much like this person, because there's really no such thing as an original idea anymore. So we have to take the tropes and kind of put our spin on it. And I always like to write the characters as being, kind of like down to earth, but extremely awkward, because I feel like that's me. I feel like I'm down to earth, but I'm really awkward too. So writing characters like that just comes natural. And I feel like every trope, like, the more tropes you have in a book, the more you are different from everybody else. If you have a whole bunch of tropes, not very many people will have the same different types of tropes in their books. Like, if you have one trope only, then yeah, you have the ability to kind of be similar to somebody else. So the more tropes, the different you're going to be. I don't know that I have a whole lot of tropes in this. I think I do. Like the financial gap, I have the age gap, I have age. So I'm sure there's probably 3 or 4 of them all together, and I think that kind of helps. The more tropes you put, you distance yourself from other writers. And yeah, there's always a fear of sounding very similar to somebody else's book, and we're always very careful not to have the same character names or have the same name as the book. We actually have we have a BSB writer who somebody named as a character in their book, and nobody caught it, and it went to print, and I'm like, wait a minute, this person is a character in this book. And so it's hard to be different, but if you've written quite a bit, then I think people just recognize your stuff as your own.
I've got a kind of a follow-up question.
Okay.
Hannah wants to know which trope is your go-to or favorite to write, and is it different from your favorite to read?
I kind of I like ice queens. I like to read them. I like to write about them, because I think they are the most complex characters out of all. Like, what has made this woman so closed off? And you can have a delicious background. You have a whole entire kitchen of problems and things that you can make for this character. And I think that is fun, because not only do you have to make this person likable after showing just how closed off they are, you have to make the reader understand why they are closed off. So I think it's challenging. I think it's fun. I think it's fun to read. I think it's fun to write. So probably Ice Queen for both sides of that. Ice Queen.
Caroline's asking, why did you give Olivia such a devastating history?
I'm sorry, I missed that question.
Why did you give Olivia such a devastating history?
I think probably because, like, I have never experienced death firsthand until recently. And I think that I drew on that, just because it is like such an incredible feeling, an emotional feeling. And I think that is a really excellent excuse to be closed off, when you feel such great loss and you don't know how to process your grief, and you just shut down. And so, like, I normally don't write about that, but I did this time because I felt it. And so I felt that I could bring truth and real feelings to the character, having experienced it myself. So
It really spoke to how she became the ice queen that we saw in the beginning, right? It was just, and how she didn't even really see herself that way,
yeah.
all the way. Yeah. Yeah.
But she got through it. So, I mean, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to process grief, and she certainly closed herself off and was just, I mean, that is the ultimate when you lose your partner and a child. I couldn't even imagine. So she had every right to be who she is, and it took a really special person to break through. And I think that because she didn't really have as big of a support group as other people do, and you also have to be available to be open up for a support group, and she wasn't like that. I mean, it was too big of a loss for her, and it took 3 whole years for her to even consider opening up. And then somehow Josie got in there.
Tell us about how you came up with Josie.
Well, the whole concept of starving artist. A lot of times I'm asked, do I come up with the character first or the plot first? And sometimes I don't know the answer to that. Because I don't know, like you said, everybody's written all these books and with the same types of tropes. And I just thought, well, what's a good, financial gap is a good one, because financial gaps do exist in relationships all the time. And I just thought, what would be a good financial gap for her? Like, what is her story? And the whole starving artist thing came up because, like I said, when you go to P-Town or any of the Cape Cod towns, there are so many galleries because there's so much art and beauty there. And I just thought, okay, well, she'll be a starving artist somewhere, and she'll graduate from a school. I picked Rhode Island. And I just thought, okay, so she's a starving artist and she's going to try everything she can to be an artist from day one, which is almost impossible to do. It's like hitting your dream job right when you graduate college. Usually we have to bounce around from job to job until we find what we like. And we all have that dream that we have the perfect job right when we graduate. Like, oh, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to be this great artist and people are going to commission, me to go do this and that. Whereas that really doesn't happen. Maybe you have to be a waitress or a server or a nanny or something just to get your feet, on the ground first before you can start, reaching for your dreams. And Josie was just, she was determined. She's young, fresh, dreamy-eyed, just everything that, the typical graduate of school, especially art school, would be. And she just came across as this really genuine person. Like she doesn't have enough life experiences to understand, everything that's going on, but she's like, hey, we can take this on a different way. We can look at the positive and not focus on the negative. And it's just, how younger people are just sometimes so refreshing to be around because they haven't had, life. They haven't had life yet. I mean, they've had some of it, but they haven't experienced so much that we all have. And so Josie was just fun because she's young and very open-minded. And I just took to her really well.
What part of the book would you say came the easiest to you? Like it just flowed, it just worked, that you had to work at the least, or maybe the part that you enjoyed writing the most?
I always love to write the ending. When I get to the ending, like I know how the beginning's going to be, like I know how it's going to start, sort of like, okay, this person's going to like, Josie's going to find this place. And like, I'm not even kidding when I say this, like the Wellingtons had no part in this book. When I turn in my, my proposal, I have to give a title, which sometimes I don't do that and they have to put that on hold. But in order to have the contract, they need to know the title of the book, and like when you're going to finish it. And I had like one paragraph and I said, hey, like I said, this is just going to be a novella. I really don't know what's going to happen or where, who's going to show up on it. But I have this artist and she's going to have a summer internship somewhere. And they're like, okay, here you go. And so I had no idea that the Wellingtons were going to be such a big part in this. Like Revere Estates is because I was looking at Boston and I was thinking of Paul Revere, and a lot of times people think that names are super important. And for me, in this particular book, they weren't. Like Gouda, Massachusetts came about because I didn't want to say Provincetown and I was eating Gouda cheese. And I said, well, I can't call it Gouda, Massachusetts, so I'm going to call it Gouda, Massachusetts. So yeah, I had no idea about the Wellingtons. I just knew that she had to be, to make this a real financial gap, I had to show how the other half lived. And so I'm like, okay, I need somebody really rich on the East Coast. Who could that be? And I was like, oh my gosh, I can bring the Wellingtons in. And not only, so it's two birds, one stone. I can like bring them back, show them what they've, what they've been up to the last 6 years. And then also like start this story and have them somehow involved in it. So, and bringing the Wellingtons back was a joy for me because I, like I said, I wasn't expecting them to be there. And all of a sudden they're like, this is the perfect excuse for me to get Josie going. So it was fun writing the Wellingtons. It was fun to write kind of like the breakthrough moment where Josie really pushes through to Olivia. And, of course, and I know the ending. Like, I know that they're going to get together. I don't know how they're going to get together. So the whole scene at the very end where they're in the street and it's snowing and Josie is not like open to listen to anything from Olivia because so much time has passed and she's just angry and she never had that opportunity to get that off her chest. And like they finally get together and then you hear Cassie yell, get out of the street. I don't want you to get hit by a car. So like bringing that back to reality, that very, loving scene and kind of throwing humor in. That was fun to write because I wasn't expecting it, but it made sense that somebody would say, get out of the street or you're going to get hit by a car, and I just like, I don't have a lot of humor in my books. I wish I could write humor better, but when it's in there, like it makes me laugh. I'm like, okay, yeah, I got that, I nailed it. At least to me, I did. So
that part was fun to read. So I do think that came through. Yeah.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Yeah, agreed.
So, I mean, yeah, it's just, it's really weird. I know that some people, like, I don't know how anybody can be a pantser. You have to know something. You really don't. And I have to really trust myself. Like Taste, when I wrote the book Taste, I didn't have the ending for, it was due in 3 days, and I had no idea what the ending was going to be. So I just have to trust myself that I'm going to get there. And so, certain scenes are a lot more fun to write. And there's that dreaded middle part where you just have to fill it up with just stuff. And just to kind of, because I would just write the beginning and the end and just have 2 chapters, beginning end, and that would be great. But that's not really how a book works. So you have to fill in that middle part, and that's not fun or easy to do, and sometimes the conflict is unrealistic in books, but we have to have that for the arc. So it's a process, and it's not always easy. So anytime I do get to write a fun scene, I really try to take it to heart, whether it's, and I say fun, which is fun for me. There's the scene where they go out, their big thing is walking on the beach late at night, and where they just kind of lay in the sand, and she sees a shooting star, and she's wondering if that's her daughter. I love that scene just because it is an emotional scene, but it's not necessarily, a fun scene to write, but it was a good scene to write. It kind of tied them all together a little bit.
I like it. I'm curious, as you talk about sort of not being a plotter, and trying to fill like the middle of the book. But you've written so many of them. So I'm curious, like, what you think your like top 3 things that keep you moving, that keep you writing, that get you through sort of the middle, and kind of like what you've done to be able to put so many books out and continue doing it.
I think there's a level of success you get after you've written X amount of books. And you strive for that. You want to be on people's bookshelves. You want to be in their Kindle. The whole reason why I'm writing stories is to be read. And it's not an ego thing. It's just like, we really need Sapphic love. We need this in our lives. And like, I grew up reading straight romance, and I just like switched the characters out. And now we have this opportunity. We have so much to choose from, and just trying to be inclusive and trying to include as much as we can in our books. Like, that's very important. So for me, it's kind of like, I'm writing on a social level. Like, I have to try to scoop up as many people as possible so that they know that our love is valid, and that we have the right to love. And we have a bunch of love on our bookshelves and in our lives. And that's very important to write. And like the book I'm writing now is perfect. I had to think, because I'm editing Dreamer right now, but it's perfect. And it's my first non-binary character. And that's so important because, we are now, I mean, I hate to say this because it's really not true, but in a way it is. We've come a long way as far as your identity. And, as much as it's been trying to be squashed for the last couple of years, 3, 4, 10, we're still fighting forward. And it's important that everybody gets the right to love and to see themselves in stories. And so that, to me, is because I have this platform, I feel an obligation, and I want to do this. I want to show more queerness in books. And that's what keeps me going. It really does.
I'm just aware of the time. We're at noon. What's your timing like, Kris? Can we have a couple more questions?
I was ready at 6:30 this morning.
I know.
Yes, you know this. No,
I'm just making sure you're not too tired now. Okay.
I have all the time.
So one of the questions I had that came up on our list was, out of all of you've written like 20 books now. So Dreamer will be your like 21st,
22, something. Yeah.
Yeah. So out of your library, out of your catalog, do you have a favorite?
I have favorites for different reasons. Things I'm proud of. Like for example, Temptation is my bestseller, hands down. And I love it because it was such a fun, flirty book to write. Like there was like I just let the character do what she wanted. I let Cassie just go. Like, I just, a lot of people want to talk about Temptation. That's the one book that people were like, they either loved Cassie or they hated her. And it's so weird to me. It's like, how do you hate her? She's great. She's a great character. But my book, Listen, that deals a lot with anxiety and proves to people that you can have a disability, a mental issue, and still have the right to love. I do suffer from anxiety. Usually by the time I'm done with a Zoom, I'm totally sweating. Like last night I did a Zoom with one of my friends, and just the fact that it was being recorded, like my back was drenched all the way through my pillow. I do suffer from anxiety. I can't really be in front of a large group of people because I don't like that many eyes on me. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to write this book because it's important to show that mental health is important in our country, and to address it, and to prove that even though you suffer, you still deserve love. Like that is my goal in life, is that every single person deserves love. And I'm going to talk about every single person. I'm going to try to write about them. Any sort of problems they have, they still deserve love. That is my message through everything. It's just like, you deserve love. And so that I'm proud of that book. And then for research reasons, Catch, my football book, because I love football. And BSB rejected the book. They didn't want to publish it. And I did so much research. I reached out to so many people in the NFL, and I had conversations with people, with coaches, just to try to figure out if I got it right, if I nailed the story or not. And I thought that was such a, I haven't done a whole lot of heavy sports books. And that one was important to me because it was the first female coordinator in the NFL. And we have so many firsts in the NFL, like in my lifetime. We have the coaches now, we have trainers, we have referees on the field. And, that's important just for women in general. It's not necessarily for sports, but just for women and equality, and just to show that we're just as good as men, if not better. And so I'm proud of that book. So those three books are probably my favorite: Temptation, Listen, and then Catch, for all different reasons. But go Bills.
Get that plug in there real quick.
Go Bills. That's right. I did do a Bills shout out in that book. So
mm-hmm. It's very true too. I know, even just with the book clubs, I have some anxiety myself.
Yeah, it's awful.
Again, where you're here for our 10th event. So woo, celebration for that 10th event. And still my anxiety, like I can feel it just amp.
Oh yeah.
So it's just a life lesson, life thing, right? Coping mechanisms. Yeah.
And I think when I was a kid, I wasn't as nervous. And I feel like the older you get, the more aware you become.
True.
And then little kids, sometimes they're really shy, and, they don't want to like say hi to people, and they hide behind their parents or whatever. But like, I don't think I was that person until I was aware of other people and how they had their attention on me. And I just don't like the attention. That's hard for me. And, I have a podcast. I've been doing it for 3 years now. And I still struggle with that. 3 years. And I've been working with Tara for 3 years. And it's a lot sometimes to take, And so I'm more of an introverted person, believe it or not.
Yeah, me too. So I wanted to ask you and give you a chance to talk about your Patreon and all of the work you're doing for all the animal rescues. And I want to talk about that for a minute as we start winding up.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. So back when COVID struck, okay, so get this. So I write Temptation, which, it was released in January of 2020. And I was like, this is the book. This is my breakout book. This is great. Everybody loves it. It was in the top on Amazon. And I was super excited because we had this massive table at Klexicon. And back in 2019, I begged our publishing company to go to Klexicon. I'm like, you don't understand. This is about queer love. Klexicon was from the 100, Klexi or Clark and Lexi together made Klexa. So the whole thing was based on queer love. And I expressed it to Rad. I'm like, you don't understand. We really need to go to this because we're going to have a lot of queer people. There are going to be a lot of women, and they're going to want to read. And so sure enough, we get there, and it was an amazing experience. Like Georgia and Melissa, they're top tier writers. Everybody knows them. They had lines of like 75 people just to get their books and sign it. And that has never happened in any Sapphic event that we've ever been to. So 2020, we had this massive booth. A lot of people wanted to go. We were all gung-ho, and I just written Temptation. It was getting great reviews, and people were buying it, and I was so excited. And then bam, COVID shut everything down. Klexicon was canceled, GCLS was canceled, P-Town was canceled, everything was canceled. And I'm just like, I have written this book and I cannot talk about it anywhere because there was nothing out there. And so I said, I need to get in front of readers. We need to let readers know that we're still here. We still want to, we want you to read our books. And so I said, well, I'm going to open a Patreon page. And I a lot of people have them, and I'm sure it helps them financially. For me, it was like, it wasn't for me. It's like, let's find a place, let's find something to do with this money that we all want to do. And everybody loves animals. I mean, there's not a single person here who doesn't love animals. And if we don't love animals, we can't be friends, because animals are like, we all have so many pets. True. I mean, I know Boz does, I know that there are a lot of people here who love animals, and we love them so much. Women are so nurturing, and we want to like save the puppy. We want to save the kitten. And, even the wildlife, the little possums that cross the yard. I'm like, oh, they're so cute. Or a little raccoon that drinks out of my bird bath. I'm like, this is the cutest thing ever. I love this. I love nature. I love animals. And so I thought, well, I'm just going to start taking the money and donating it to local shelters here, just like buying food. I don't necessarily, I'm not real fond of giving the cash. I like the idea for two reasons. I like the idea of giving stuff. So like when I first started, it was just local things here in Kansas City. Most of my patrons were either like, readers who have been with me from the beginning, and or my friends here in Kansas City. And so the first couple of months, it was just around Kansas City. We did like this Shep's Place, I think is what it's called. We did a couple of shelters around here. And then it started growing. And I thought, well, that's just not fair. Why don't we just take the pledges every month and pick a different patron? And then it's almost like every shelter or every sort of animal sanctuary or something, they all have a wish list somewhere, whether it's on Amazon or even on their their homepage. They might not tell you exactly what they want, but they'll say, we need towels, we need blankets, we need, whatever, cat food, dog food, any kind. And so it's great because what I'll do is I'll look at the list, I'll buy everything from Amazon, and I'll ship it to the patron, because every month somebody else gets to pick a new one. And so like I'll however much it is for the month, we buy everything off of Amazon, ship it to the patron, they contact the shelter and determine when a good time is to deliver, so that everybody's involved. And then they get to go and drop off all this, a carload full of stuff and supplies that the sanctuary or shelter needs. And then they take pictures and they come back and we share it on the whole, for everybody on Patreon to see. And that's just like, it's such a great community. I mean, we're already together because we love books and we love to write or read or whatever, but it's the books. And so now we have something else that's in common, is our love for animals. So that's how this whole thing, how Patreon for my Patreon account, how that came to be. Just because I needed to stay in front of readers, and we needed to do this for a good cause. And so every month, and it's worldwide. It's not even just like in the United States. We've sent it to Estonia. I have one patron who now lives in Greece but grew up in Estonia, and she even made like this incredible video that it's just amazing. Like, it's wow. It's like a professional video she made just to show her donations and the drop off and things like that. So So that's why I started it. I'm going to keep doing it as long as, people join up or, whatever they can. It's 100%, if not more, because I usually, donate some money myself, because it's not fair that I just use everybody else's money. So, and sometimes if it's close to me, or if I have a personal interest in it, then I'll do a little bit more. And sometimes we can give, like over $1,000 to somebody for a month, and that helps. That really does. And it's such a good feeling. I mean, we're here to do good things in this world, and animals need our help.
I love that. That's amazing. Thank you so much for all the work you do. And I think it's time for us to wind up. Jade, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I really appreciate you sharing and taking the time to tell us about the book. I'd love to hear just a quick snippet about the next one you've got, if you've got a scheduled release and name and just kind of a brief description of it so we know what to look for.
I have the book Dreamer coming out in January. Right now it's in page proofs. I should be proofing. That's probably what I'll do the rest of the afternoon is get into page proofs. And it's very hard to explain. It is extremely different than anything I've written before. And it's about a woman who she has an electric car, and it kind of dies in a small town, and there's of course no chargers and no cell phone service, because why would there be in a small town? So she kind of gets stuck there, and she makes friends with the librarian there, and it's just their story of getting together and what their obstacles are to overcome in order for them to be together. But it is a very different book for me, and it should be hitting the review sites here very soon. And I'm actually kind of nervous about the response to this book, just because I said it is very, very different. I haven't had, usually I have a proofer who like reaches out first thing. It's like, oh, I have your book and it's great and I love it. And this proofer wasn't able to get this book, so I have no feedback at all. And so I feel like the first feedback I get will be like the diehard, reviewers, and who either like my stuff or hate it. And I hate the whole thing. Like, I don't like first person. So I have like 80% of my books are first person, and it's like, if you don't like it, don't feel the need to review it, like, or read it, like, just move on. Like, that is almost always going to be first person for me. And so I do get a lot of those, and I do read every review. But I am very interested to see the reviews on this book. So that comes out January 1st. And then I'm writing Perfect, which I will say this because it does involve a previous book of mine. I wrote the Bachelorette story, which is called Forever. And a lot of people really reached out to me because they really wanted to read Alex's story. And Alex was the only non-binary character I've ever written. And they were a contestant on this show, When Sparks Fly. And so now it's Alex's turn to find love. And it has nothing to do with the show. It's just the show just happens to be the background because that's their job. So it's all about Alex finding this person. And it starts off, it's kind of like a Cinderella story that I'm writing now. So because the love interest is she doesn't identify who she is, because I can't give it away, but yeah, so I'm writing that. So I'm starting to pick back up again. I was a little slow there for a while, but I'm starting to pick back up again and getting back into writing and enjoying it again.
Well, I hope you'll come back and join us again when your new releases come out.
Anytime you want me, I will talk about it. Thank you very much for having me.